And here we go. So, now that we're all cozy, I didn't actually prepare a PowerPoint for us, but tonight we're basically just going to be going over some rules for how to write kanji and covering a few more kanji and kind of reviewing what we already know. So, to start off, there's always a stroke order to all of the kanji, and you can actually start to kind of guess at what the stroke order is going to be because there are a few rules to it. So first off, you always start the kanji at the top. So for like the number 3, you would go dash, dash, dash from top to bottom, like that. And then secondly, we want to know that usually we go left to right, like that. So we go top to bottom and left to right when writing our kanji. And so this can kind of help us start figuring out where we want to go. But once we start to get into patterns like that, we have, well, do we start at the top or at the left? And basically, the rule that we always follow is we always want to go horizontal lines and then vertical lines, going from the top left down, like that. And so we can start to see the correct, you should all recognize this kanji as being tree. And to write it, we want to start off with our horizontal line, and then do a downward stroke, and then draw the branches from left to right. And now there are a few exceptions to this, such as whenever something is kind of branched off to the side and would be kind of off on its own. For example, in the water kanji, we start with the center. We start with the center line like that, and then we would go the left part of it, and then the right part of it, starting with the top stroke, and then going down, just like that. So start with the center, the left side, the upper branch of the right side, and the lower branch of the right side to connect it. So once we start to get the hang of kind of horizontal strokes, vertical strokes, left and right, then we kind of start to see, you kind of start to visualize and see where some of these kanji might, or how some of these kanji might be written. But there are a few more things that we want to know. First off, you'll see a lot of boxes, like the kanji for mouth is like that. And for these ones, they're actually 3 strokes apiece. And so you would go the left side down, which is a weird exception, but this is for all. The easy way to remember this is you always go left, you always go horizontally and then vertically, except when you're doing boxes. With boxes, you would want to draw this line, and then from this corner, you come out and down to form the part of the box, and the third stroke is connecting the bottom of the box, just like that. And this works for basically anything that's enclosing another kanji. So, for example, the kanji for doctor would be written like this. Yeah, a little bit wrong there. The kanji for doctor would be written like this. And you would start with the outer layer, or the box, to box it in, and then you have this nice little area in here to finish the kanji. Next up, we want to look at a different type of enclosure. It's called like the bottom line enclosure. I'll show you what it is quick. The kanji for I see this one would be new, I believe, is like that, and then you have a dash right here, and then that, and that. So you have almost like an enclosure on the bottom that's lining the bottom like this. So whenever we have this, we want to do this part last. So we start with this part, and then we finish it with that. Next up, let's look at the kanji for father that we learned. When you have like larger crosses like this, you would go the left one, the right one, and then anything underneath them. And in this case, we should also take note that after we do left and right of the two dashes up here, to do the cross below them, we would start in the upper left and draw towards the bottom right, and then we start with the upper right one and draw towards the bottom left. Right. Let me check something. Yep, I am getting the audio. Fantastic. Just a quick check. And then every once in a while, we'll also see anything where we want to like intersect something and where we see like an obvious cross to something, we would want to be doing the cross part last. So for example, the kanji for to write would be written like this, and at the end we would draw the cross intersecting it, and then we would start with the bottom part of the kanji. So the mini box like that, intersecting the box, the other two lines, and then we intersect all of them at once. And then we see the reason that we do this, and the reason that a lot of these stroke orders are present, is to kind of help line the kanji up better, because lining it out horizontally allows you to gauge how high vertically the kanji is going to be, because we know that kanji always typically try to form a very boxy shape. And so if we line out the kanji like that for tree, we know that our vertical has to start about here and come down to about here until we formed approximately a square shape out of it, like that. And in this case, with the way that we cross the kanji in the kanji to write, we see that we're forming kind of the basic shape of it, rather than trying to judge how tall we need it to be. And then if we try to fill in all of this, it can get very messy and very hard to proportion, where here we can see that we're much more rigid in the way that we proportion it, and we know exactly how tall we want this line to be. And so that's where these stroke orders come from. Lastly, we have some various dashes. For example, in the kanji for ba, we would write it like this: dash, 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 and then down to write the kanji for king. And then lastly, we finish it with the little dash right here. So all of our horizontals intersect them down, and then finally the dash comes last. And we can see this remains true for any dashes that aren't on top of the kanji, because if they're on top of the kanji, they're going to be kind of defining the area that the kanji takes up. For example, the kanji for Lord or Daimyo would be written with a dash at the top, and then we start the kanji. Like that. So if it's on top, start with it. Because if you write out the kanji like that and then try to put that on top of it, you're probably going to be positioning this line right here as the top of it, where that's not the case. We want to position it relative to our first dash, which is going to be the very top of it. And then the final thing of note in defining our kanji, or how to do the stroke order, I'll use the kanji strength as an example. We can see that in here we have multiple radicals, and we want to start out with the upper leftmost radical, and then from there we want to move into I believe it's written like that. So let's here's the pour. It would be written like that. With we write this radical, then this radical, and then this radical. And so radicals will always go upper left to line it out, and then upper right, and then lower left if we have one, and lower right. So we kind of follow the same way that we would do all of the other bits of the kanji, but radicals are individualized, unlike little itty-bitty pieces of some of these kanji. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at a few new kanji tonight, and maybe review some old ones. Let's see, so the first new one that I think should be introduced tonight is the kanji for like a Buddhist temple, or a temple. And we would write that like this. We want to focus on the cross up here, and then line. We focus by drawing the cross, and then drawing a horizontal line, and bring it out a little bit farther than the cross, so that we have like a little bit of nice open area up here. And then not quite on this corner, but a little bit inward, so that we have a little bit of overhang. Come down and give it a little bit of room, and then give it a tail right there. Draw another horizontal intersection here, and give it a bit of a tail too, to match the line above it, and then give it a little dash underneath. And this is the kanji for temple. And the reason that I wanted to show off this one is that I could show off one of the most important kanji that we're going to be looking at, and that is the kanji for hour or time. And that is written with almost like an 8 right here. And notice the way that I came down and boxed it in like that in 2 strokes and then wrote the 3rd stroke. We write that, and then with the other side we would write this temple kanji as a radical. So overall it looks like this. Typically we want to try to keep our lines very straight, and we want to kind of stretch these kanji and bring them so that they're we want to make them very square. So this little 8, or it almost looks like the sun radical, but not quite. We want to definitely stretch it so that it's more like this one than this one. And so that's that we kind of have room, again, to stretch this temple radical and fit it into a nice, neat square here. And hopefully as you start to go on, you'll start to pick up sort of how to stretch these radicals in kanji to make them fit. It's definitely an acquired art. I'm still not perfect at it either. But the more you practice, and especially if you have the square paper, it can really help you start to get your kanji proportioned right. Because when written out in these lines of kanji, having them nice and square is going to make them a lot more legible than these really wonky, say I draw my kanji like this, and they're really weird and wide, versus if I were to draw them a little bit nicer like this, so that they're a little bit more segmented, and we can it's just a little bit easier to read on a line when they're segmented, and that way you can kind of space them out easier. Because radicals, if you don't draw them correctly, they can almost look like they're part of the next or previous kanji that you wrote. And that's why we really, really heavily want to emphasize these boxes. Next up, now that we've learned this kanji for hour, let's look at a similar kanji, which means year. We start off with a dash right here, and the horizontal line coming out from it. We draw another horizontal line below that, and then we want one more that's just a bit longer than these two, and then bring a line down to intersect them in the center, or kind of in the center of this line, the top line right here, and then one more to connect this middle line and the bottom line, just like that. And this is the kanji for year. So as I should go and kind of write some of these out. In English. And so oftentimes you'll see in like Japanese posters for movies and shows and stuff, say the English numbers 2020, because they don't use these kanji for daily use. They're really more decorative when they're used. They prefer Roman numerals, not. I don't know what we call our characters for numbers.
Romanized numerals?
It could be.
Romanized numerals. the numbers that we use, they use those, okay? And then you'll see them like writing. You'll see like the date for something written like this as 2020, then the kanji for year. And go ahead and go, like, while you're kind of browsing, you'll definitely see this kanji out a lot. And you'll start to notice, if you look at a lot of Japanese movie posters, especially for anime, you'll see and start to recognize this kanji for year, and so you can tell what year it's going to be in. We already know the kanji for moon, and we should already know that this kanji also means month. And finally, the day also means sun. And so we can look for these three characters on Japanese movie posters to determine what day it's coming out, or what day something is happening. So if you're ever not sure of, like, well, do the Japanese write the day first or the month first, because Europe does it one way, the US does it another way, they'll almost always write it like that. Or they'll almost always write the kanji out with it. And so it can be easy to tell. Interestingly, you'll also see the kanji for what day of the week it's releasing on, which I don't see on a lot of American movie posters, but the Japanese are very picky about putting exactly what day of the week something is releasing on.
Just like that, right? In the box?
Yeah, exactly like that. What's another one we should cover? We covered most of these elemental ones. One that I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen is this one, which means what, and is famously pronounced nani. You want to write this as sort of the radical that we learned for person, as well as the radical for street, to box in a little box. When you're practicing this one, try to keep it nice and square. And the more sort of enclosed you can make it feel without having any of these kanji touch, the better it's going to look. Now, you'll have to remind me if we did some of these already, but I think to go along with the kanji for hour that we learned up here, we should probably learn the kanji for minute, which is, remember, our dashes on top first, and then our horizontals, and we actually connect this one like that, and then one more down. And this one is the kanji for minute. Pronounced either pun or hun, depending on the counter. With this one, we want to kind of keep the top line flat, and the bottom we start to curve in like that, and the back line we kind of want to curve back like that. Definitely look these up on your own to kind of see how more professional kanji artist would do it. Calligrapher. I don't know. But the internet has some great examples of how to write some of these kanji. So if you're kind of confused on what the stroke order might be, go ahead and look it up, because the internet has plenty of great examples. And so this is, once again, minute, and let's go ahead and remember quick. We draw the 8, and then we draw the temple or the kanji for a temple to get hour. Minute and hour. Now, keep in mind, when you're learning the kanji, you definitely want to write these slowly. These are not like, we don't write them like English, because, well, chicken scratch works in English. There are over 2,000 kanji, so you have to define them well. And because you're actually writing less characters with kanji, you can definitely take your time more. Next up, let's look at another kanji dealing with time, the kanji meaning now, or ima. We draw the top down to the left, the right stroke of it, this dash in here that lines the top of this little arc in the bottom. Should be a fairly simple one. So next up, what do I want to throw in here? Let's see if you guys can remember from last week what this kanji means.
Ground.
Yep. Ground, earth, soil, or also Turkey. How about, I said it earlier, but does everyone remember this one?
That one is water.
Mizu.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. What should we look at next tonight? Everyone want to learn a couple more, or
I've got
Shellfish,
room on
that's a
this
fun
page
one.
for a couple more.
huh?
I've got room on my page for a couple more.
All right. Let's do a couple more. Let's go ahead and look at. We've learned day, and we've learned month. So let's look at week. That one is written as. Scroll down a bit. We want to go ahead and give ourselves a little box to work with, and then inside of there, we want to do the kanji for dirt or ground / earth, and then a kanji for mouth, and then we want to do one of these fancy little undersides to it, like that. I always think of it as kind of like a signature line, like, you know, sign here, do your signature here. To do this one is, it looks kind of wonky. You want to do the dash first, and then kind of come down following almost like another dash, and then draw downward and back like that. And then we take back here on the corner and draw forward like that. So to review the whole thing, we start off by giving ourselves the box, or the partial box here, and then inside of there drawing the kanji for dirt, the kanji for mouth, and then our dash, and our bottom text. This one can take a bit of practice, but the reason why I said signature line is because this was the first kanji that I learned this radical on, and I kind of thought, you know, you kind of have this box, and it almost looks like a head, and then kind of someone squinting and shouting something like, "Oh my God, I just got my paycheck signed," like that. At the end of the week, you get your paycheck signed, and you go on, you get this money, so you're screaming about how much cash you got. Yeah.
It's good shit, man.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully that helps. What's another one that we can cover? We covered up, down, left, and right, didn't we?
We covered left and right.
Do we remember which one is which? Can you all try to draw them for me? Can you try to draw left and right for me and tell me which one's which?
Left, right.
Yep, exactly correct.
Also, everybody's favorite level.
Huh?
Everybody's favorite level. Water temple.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I believe
Left and
I
right.
put everything
Huh?
in the right
Left
order.
and right.
Yep.
Okay. This is a good one for where you put the line matters. 'Cause this
Yeah,
is
that's very important.
Stone, right?
Mhm. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, so with left and right, we want to draw them like that. This one is left, and this one is right. And as Matthew pointed out, this is a very important case of where we put the line, because stone kind of looks like this. If you draw it like that, it's going to make it right, but drawing it like this makes it stone. So be very careful of your proportions on these lines, because right, stone. Let's see, and then we left or up and down are pretty easy. Everyone got those down. So for up and down, down would be like pointing down like that, and then up would be the opposite of that. Oh, sorry, I wrote up wrong. It's like that. And actually, another example of how lines matter. Do you guys remember the kanji for person? Can everyone write that out for me?
Wait, are you talking about that one or this one?
That one, the hito one.
Okay.
So this one. not the tiny radical, not that. So we want that one. Now can you guys write out the kanji for enter?
Is
Yep.
that right? Yeah.
Enter. Or haidu. Pronounced hai, but you always... to enter is haidu, but the kanji itself is pronounced hai. So that one's very particular in that you kind of have to go like that. And if you're not very good at defining your kanji, you can put the little flag on it like that to distinguish it and really make sure that people know what you're trying to write. But technically, you're supposed to kind of just curve it. And opposite of that is, does everyone remember exit or to exit? So to exit would be drawn like that. Almost like, I always kind of remember it like, it looks kind of like the kanji for mountain if you stacked another mountain on top of it. And so you kind of picture like these two levels of the mountain, and so you're exiting the mountain. What else do we have up that might be kind of important that we should review? Does everyone remember the kanji for I? Not I as in watashi, I as in the anatomical body part, I. Nope, that is to see.
Oh, okay.
That is I. Yep.
Gotcha.
So what Matthew did was he wrote this, which is to see, but it actually contains the kanji for I within it. And so if we remember, if we turn this sideways, we get this, which kind of looks like an I. And so 3 strokes, and I don't follow my stroke order here because I always try to write it like a box. You want to like that, but you want the 2 strokes in the center of the box. If we're writing the box out first, we draw 2 strokes within the box. But again, proportions can really get messed up when you do it like that. Especially it starts to matter when you write out the kanji for to write like that. And if you try to do the box like this, it's going to end up looking really tall because we actually want to really flatten this character on the bottom, and we want to like press in on it and really kind of make it plump out to the sides. So very much like that if we write this up here. But that's why it's much easier to draw the lines like that and then do the vertical lines to help proportion the width more. And then once you have the width, it's just about connecting these, and then you don't have to worry about height. Does everyone remember the kanji for inside? Or within? I don't know. I believe we went over at least one of them. We might have gone over both of the kanji for inside, but typically you'll see it. The kanji that's used when we try to define something as being inside something else, is written like this. And this is defining like, well, my heart is inside my body. Heart inside body. And that's like it's inside something. Whereas there's another kanji for inside written like this. Really, it's quite tricky to get down. This one would mean, it would be referring to like the inside of something rather than saying this is inside something. It refers to the inside as a space. It's a noun rather than an adjective. Let's see. Then last one let's go over is for review. Can everyone tell me what this kanji means?
It's the kanji for gold.
Yep. So written your left stroke, your right stroke of the roof with 3 horizontals. Intersect them with the vertical, and then the 2 dashes. And so one last time before we leave, let's go over our rules once more. We want to start off with horizontal top to bottom, vertical left to right, and then we want to remember, I apologize, what were the rules in the order that we went through them? That's right. Boxes you can do in 3 strokes. Anything that's inside of a box, we enclose the box in, because then we don't need the box paper because we have our own box. So like that, and make sure that you give yourself enough space inside the box. Otherwise, it can be very, very tricky to write the tiny little kanji in there. For anything that's got like the bottom enclosed sign radical like that, we would write the kanji first and then do the bottom. For the larger dashes, we can start with them at the top like that. But in the case of little dashes, they come last. And we want to remember to do crosses and intersections that divide our kanji last. And, well, this kanji is also the perfect example of do this kanji, and then this is an entirely separate kanji, or it's a separate radical within the kanji, and so we do the radicals from top to bottom, like 1, 2, 3, 4, in kind of that general order. And yeah, that's about all I've got for the night. I think it was episode 13 and 14 tonight. I believe we were on episode 13 and 14.
Sounds right.
If it seems like it jumped ahead, go back a few and check it out. I don't know, YouTube should show you what ones you already watched. And, I mean, there's last week's video to go see. I don't have it pulled up
YouTube's
right
not
now.
going to show me what ones I've already watched because I watched them here.
No.
That's for the people
Yeah,
at home.
well, fair. But we'll be watching those. Anyway, everyone have a good night.